am not live. You guys, I thought I have it totally together today. So now let me see if, because what I did was I rearranged my thing so that it would be sideways. And I don't know how I did that, but then I forgot that I did it. And so now it's sideways. Everything was set after all those mishaps yesterday. I was fully expecting 1,000 mishaps today. So let's see what I can do here other than just start a new stream, Mark. Oh, how ridiculous can it be? How ridiculous can it be? Like I said, I finally figured out how to do that. Starting off like you ended yesterday. Well, I'm really proud of myself for not just like saying forget it, because I almost did. When it fell over the second time and I said I give up, I was seriously gonna like turn the thing off, but then I didn't, and I thought I did pretty good. So here we go. I can read your text. You know what? I think the text is a little bit bigger when it's like this too. Holy smokes. But I don't know where the boundary is for like over here, so that you just get to see the cool imaginary sky behind me and you don't have to like act like it's an actual room. You can think about me just like being in the galaxy, right? I'm just so glad that I don't put on any pretenses, because if I had ever, this would be the end of it, wouldn't it? So thanks so much for being here. And this is weird too. I'm not sure I like this because I can only see like one at a time. Exactly. I'm not going to touch Squirrels on Fire because that's what happened yesterday. Was I was like scrolling back to read Mark's message. I think it was all whoever's fault of the message that I was reading. And then like it slipped, and then catastrophe. But I think it's great. I think it's hilarious. I also think it's hilarious that I had everything perfect for it to be, the way that I hate. Like it's so tall, like it goes up so high and it goes down so low. It's ridiculous. And then I forgot that I'd already fixed that because I didn't even know that there was a way to fix it. Oh, so let me put in my AirPods. I don't know how my sound is. Is the sound okay? What, my fault? Everything's your fault, Mark. That's one of my favorite lines from Kurt Cobain. Everything's my fault. Okay. So is it good? Is the sound different or better with or without the AirPods? If you want to help me out on that. Hi, you guys. How are you today? And you can't see my cool hat, can you? It says, and now my watch has ended. Sound and video is perfect. Excellent. Thank you so much for being here, you guys. Please. And here, I have my thumbs up button, but it's like out of the frame now. There we go. Please hit that thumbs up button. I'll just set it down right there, and then I'll lift it up when I need to. I'm not going to adjust things, not even that little light behind me, because as soon as I start adjusting things, we know I'll be knocking everything over. And now I said that, and I'm like, you know what? It's kind of dark, isn't it? Okay, I need to just stick with what I said. Don't adjust things, of course. Okay, it's kind of dark though, isn't it? Everything down. Is that good? Okay, so I love you guys. Thank you so much for being here. Let me see if I turn anything up a smidge, if it's just gonna like throw everything sideways. So I'm sideways now. Remember when I was doing my live sideways? I didn't have it set a few days ago. That was too funny because I could have sworn that you could do that. And then I thought, oh, it must only be when you're not live. And I must have done that when I wasn't live. When there was a problem with my computer a few months ago. I forget what that was. Anyway, that computer cost as much as a car. And it has the insurance up the wazoo. The way they really get you is they tell you that if you're going to utilize your Geek Squad, that is going to be 2 weeks before they can get the sucker back to you. So, who wants to be without their laptop for 2 weeks? Unless you have another laptop, which I kind of do, but it's so old. It's a dinosaur. I don't want to be doing that. I'd rather literally probably not even be able to do YouTube or just use my cell phone. So, we're doing it. We're here. We're good to go. Shan, I didn't get a chance to see your video premiere that you just dropped, but I did see most of your live from last night. And I did get to see Ara's 22-minute live from last night. So it's kind of cool that we're all on the same wavelength as far as jurisdiction. So let me do my little disclaimer. Everything I say is simply my opinion, simply for the sake of conversation. Always hoping to open up a discussion and learn something and be educational and have good lighting or filter. I have no filter, metaphorically and literally. But I'm cool. Like, I put up a couple of videos this morning. Maybe you caught one or two of them of me singing songs a cappella again. And I made these videos 3 years ago when I was, when we were all, like, on our stay-at-home orders, right? Our shelter in place, and for those 3 years, there's been times where I've thought about posting them, and I've just thought, "No, don't do it," and I posted them this morning. I think after yesterday's mishaps that honestly, I think it was great. I think the mishaps were great. And I said that thing about happy accident, thinking of Bob Ross, right? I was like thinking I invented the phrase at the moment. And then afterwards, as soon as I was done recording, I was like, oh, yeah, that's a Bob Ross thing. I should have kicked him some credit, right? So, Annie Ruler, nice to see you. So, just for anyone who didn't hear at the beginning, with my cell phone sideways, I can only see one chat at a time. So, I'm sorry, I'll probably be missing a ton of them. I know I missed a few just in the last few minutes. But let me drink my coffee. I've had enough that I should be functional, but the more the merrier, especially with this silly phone thing at the last second. Um, So I didn't do my whole disclaimer. All my videos to date have been made for YouTube. It's an entertainment platform. I'm always trying to open up a discussion where we can all learn something together. Yesterday, I was doing an up church and reading out of the dictionary. I think Shan did that recently too, didn't you? Just in the last couple of days. But that's something that my mother taught me. She always had a dictionary nearby and she was always using big words, and it was rough, but it was kind of a cool habit to try to have a dictionary nearby. And when you hear a word that you don't know or you read a word that you don't know, look it up and then try to use it. Because if you don't use it, you're going to forget. It's just like when you meet somebody in their name, right? Thanks for the love. Yes, thank you guys. So, anyway, I think it's really important to be specific and to know things and to know that we don't know everything, of course. And in relationship to the Kylie Rodney case, I want to just jump in right away because Shan did about a 1 hour live last night, and I think she's going to try to be picking up where she left off tonight. And Ara did that 22-minute live, and the theme is about jurisdiction. And I'm not going to pretend that I'm any expert in jurisdictions because there's a lot of nuances to it. But I do know a few things. When we lived in Washington State, my husband was um, an enforcement officer with the Department of Fish and Wildlife. He was not a ranger. He was not a natural resources ranger, but that was what he was aiming for. So he was an enforcement officer with the Department of Fish and Wildlife, enforcing hunting and fishing rules and regulations, basically. So it's different in every state, but from him, I know a lot about there in Washington State, there's a lot of issues with tribal lands, and that's pretty much what all of the Washington State employees, Department of Natural Resources, do essentially is
kind of be a watchdog to make sure that the agreements are being upheld, and mostly to make sure that the white people are upholding the agreement that they made with the Native Americans 150 years ago. So, that's probably more information than anyone needed, but it's interesting, isn't it? And then when you're dealing with parks, when you're dealing with like the Olympic National Forest, the rainforest, you're dealing with national parks, you have state parks, you have county parks, you have all kinds of parks. And each of those parks has its own law enforcement, basically. Um, but those law enforcement officers are far and few between, so they rely heavily on local law enforcement, and there's an agreement in place, and they have it all out theoretically. But then when something tragic happens, when an emergency happens, people just have to respond. First responders just have to respond. I mean, you can get into a very sticky, dangerous, heinous situation quickly, and nobody has time to say, wait, is this my jurisdiction or yours? You just got to act if you're the one on duty and you're there. So, most dispatch units send out all points bulletins, especially when it's a big, um, like a multi catastrophic event. When it's a mass casualty event, you're going to have all points bulletins, and everybody within 20 miles or so is going to show up, depending on thick population is. Anyway, back to the point of, like, you've got the FBI, which the State Bureau of Investigation is different, obviously, and those are additional entities on top of the ones that are for specifically the national park, the state park, the county park, um, or the bike path. Bike path is usually under the State Department of Natural Resources, but again, it's different state to state. So you have to know where you are and what your rules are. Um, and what else? So you've got your state Bureau of Investigation, like in Colorado, it's called the CBI, Colorado Bureau of Investigation. Here in Ohio, we just call it the BCI, the Bureau of Criminal Investigation. And they pretty much always show up when it's a unaliving by another person. They pretty much have to be there because that's their expertise. Um, and then you've got your county sheriffs, and you've got your town or city police, and then sometimes you have campus police if you're on a college campus. So, um, in Truckee, put a comment in Ara's live comment section this morning. And again, I'm not trying to be a know-it-all because I'm not. I know some things and it's really complicated and it's sometimes different on a case-by-case basis and different depending on what agreements have been made and what addendums have been made. And sometimes jurisdictions will annex in, like maybe Truckee has annexed in the campground. The Truckee town police department could do something like that, where they say, okay, well, we're going to cover campgrounds that are really close by. Since we're so close and things happen there, they need a quick, rapid response. So, with the Kylie Rodney case, it's my understanding that Lindsay Rodney Neiman made the initial missing persons report and that was dispatched to Placer County because of where the lodge is located, which is like right outside of Nevada County. So pretty much Truckee is Nevada County, but the lodge is far enough away that it's just past the border. So that was a Placer County case. So that was under the jurisdiction of Sheriff Wu, and you guys know how I feel about that. I mean, I think that man should not be allowed to practice law enforcement, let alone be in charge of a department, let alone be in charge of a case with a missing 16-year-old. It just makes me cringe. It is so cringeworthy. Um, And then when they were focusing on the Prosser County campground, since they knew that that was the last place she was seen and the last place her phone pinged, then that made it more of a shared jurisdiction with the Nevada County Sheriff. So Shannon Moon was involved right away. And then, as we all know, they had like 50, roughly 50 FBI agents out there on day one for Lord knows what reason. Um, that could be because I think it's a state park or it's a national park. I think it's a national park. I think it's federal land. But you have to remember that Scammy's mother and father, with their Sierra Tahoe private investigators firm, pretty much all their contracts are government contracts. So they are tight with the government agencies and they know people and they have connections. So um, it could be that that location was strategically chosen because of these things. And again, Scammy's parents would know this because of the field of business that they're in. And Scammy would know this because she knew where all the freaking traffic cams were, right? I think she reported her missing. Oh, dang it. LOL. Head to head, same time slot. Gingers for justice. That's funny. Man, and the comments come up and then they fade away. How annoying. Literally, I should be getting my computer back any day, and this will all be history, hopefully. Fingers crossed. I mean, it could take a lot longer too, right? It shouldn't. Whatever it was pretty simple, but we'll see. So Ara had recommended a movie. I didn't write down the name of it, but I actually had watched it before when she recommended it a few months ago. And and then she recommended a series that she's been watching, I think called Yellowstone. And I think that both of them have that theme of being weaving into their stories like a basically a dead zone where people have a tendency to dump remains because they know that it's a lost jurisdiction. And I know that criminals look for lost jurisdictions. They literally look for it. Like out in Washington State, that was pretty easy out in the peninsula where Forks is, where they filmed Twilight. When you're out on that peninsula where the Hurricane Ridge and the Olympic National Forest is, oh my goodness, and now I'm saying that my battery's low, and of course my cord is out in the car. I'm just gonna scream. No, I'm just kidding. If it dies, then I'll get the cord and restart. I thought I had a lot of battery. How stupid. Anyway, it might be fine. It said 20%. It was warning number one. So where was I about that people committing crimes, they like to go to Alaska because Alaska is so big and spread out and there's all kinds of no man's land and jurisdiction issues. But they also go out to the Olympic Peninsula in Washington State because it's kind of the edge of the world, the end of the universe. It's the edge of the continental US and it's very remote because the lay of the land and the Native American reservation land and the national forestry. It's like the wild, wild west. And there's some terrible things that happen there. And I think even more terrible things happen on the Native American reservations, I want to add, because they are sovereign nations. So they don't abide by any of the white people laws. They do what they do. They do it their way. And it can be really, really grisly. Okay. I woke up really early this morning, drank my coffee, was watching some of the live, like ours live, and also finishing The Lord of the Flies, because I told you guys recently that I'd never seen nor read The Lord of the Flies. So I watched the rest of the more modern one from 1990, and it's pretty much what I already knew, right? But I'm just kind of stunned, like watching it with the context of what Scammy said, like, oh, it was like Lord of the Flies out there. It was scary. So she's implying that there were no grown-ups, or that if there was a grown-up, they were like, thinking of roasting them and having them in their s'mores or something. I mean, um, the implication is certainly savagery and violence and bullying. There's a real that whole theme of the Lord of the Flies. I finally watched it is a bullying theme, right? So one person starts picking on somebody, and when that person has people backing them up, that gets out of hand really quickly. Um, so wow, pretty creepy. And just so many red flags, so many red flags. I'm really glad that I was finally able to watch it. The other one that I want to watch that I've never seen nor read the book is Fight Club. That might be a little frightening from what I know of the story. Um, but one of the things that I wanted to talk about today that I've wanted to talk about for like the last week or two, and I keep forgetting, which is crazy because it's such a big issue, is actually with the Idaho 4 case. So, with the Idaho 4 case, the premise that you've got this graduate student, not just a graduate student, but a doctoral level graduate student, which, if you guys don't know, only like 2% of our American population has a college degree higher than a bachelor's degree. 2%. And most of those are master's degrees. The mass majority of that 2% is master's level. Very, very, very small percentage. I could Google it, you could Google it. What percentage of the population has a doctoral degree? Not very many. like, I'm sure it's less than 1%. Absolutely. But as we know, Koberger was working on his PhD, and it's easy to put people into this category of like being the mad scientist or the mad professor, right? And then adding insult to injury, this whole thing about him being not just a vegetarian, but a vegan, and not just a vegan, but a vegan who demands that their relatives buy new pots and pans so that they won't starve to death because they couldn't possibly eat something that came out of a frying pan that's ever touched meat. Sorry if you guys can hear the dog barking. One thing after another. Okay, train of thought, that's all. Um, so the vegan, it's pretty hardcore. People that live a vegan lifestyle, I think it's quite admirable if people can do it right and stay healthy. It's extremely healthy. Um, but it's hard, and I think people that I've spoken to that have had a strict vegan diet admit that they get pretty angry because they are just having appetite issues, or they get hangry. There you go, they get hangry. Also, we're not only told that this guy's a hangry, crazy veg head, but he's also like a 28-year-old virgin, allegedly. So, crazy, ultra vegan, veg head, mad scientist, professor, 28-year-old virgin with that whole incel thing that I think was pulled out of somebody's rear end. I don't think that has anything to do with Koberger. And I'm honestly wondering if he's even vegetarian. Like, has anybody like seen receipts on that? Because that was trying they were trying to use that as the foundation of here is our motive. Our motive is that he's a crazy vegetarian that is suppressing his cannibalistic urges because of his incelness, and he popped off and he did all this, right? No. Like, I just think the whole thing is a sham. I really do. And I understand people that think that that's crazy, that, it would be insane that law enforcement would confabulate fake evidence and fake documentation to pin a crime on somebody who didn't do it. But we all know that that has happened many times. And I've watched a couple of Harsh's more recent videos, and he's on a really good path with looking at the industry of the university and the merger that they were doing with, was it the um, University of Arizona or something like that, that is giving an additional $150 million a year to the University of Idaho. So they were working on that merger when this uh, disaster happened, when this mass casualty event happened, essentially in the middle of campus, in the middle of the quarter, right? Um, and they were trying to make it safe for people to come back to school right after the new year, and they just happened to arrest Koberger on the 29th or the 30th. I think it was like, you know, right there on the cusp of the 29th and 30th before New Year's. And then people were coming back to school on the 2nd. I don't think he worked alone either. Well, he may have had some involvement, but I don't even like to entertain that because he doesn't necessarily need to have any involvement. But a if it's a big conspiracy against him and against the public safety of that community, it's so much easier. And I understand why people would want to say somebody like me is just a conspiracy theorist, because that is a lot easier to wrap your mind around and feel safe in your world with that idea that, you know, you've got this crazy madman gone mad insane out there, and then you've got these conspiracy theorists that think that that's not possible, rather than the reality that it is entirely possible. Not, I'm not saying that it's true, but it is entirely possible that the case was pinned on one person to try to wrap it up tight and just get back to business as usual. Um, so thank you so much for your comments, and I apologize that I keep missing them. Hopefully, you guys are having a good chat amongst yourselves. But yeah, I also, as usual, am squirrel brained, especially because my battery's low, my camera is sideways, and so many distractions. But I want to jump over to Maui for a moment. I've mentioned recently that Brush Junkie has been putting out new videos, and um, Hawaii Real Estate's been putting out new videos, and Survive or Thrive has been putting out new videos. So the latest one from Hawaii Real Estate, just on the last day, is him, Eric West, interviewing Tyler, who has that channel called Survive or Thrive. So it's super interesting to get Ty's story of what he experienced during the fire. And I'm going to put a link to that in the description here. Um, Also, Tyler has dropped a new one that's just like 7 minutes long of him interviewing a teacher, a teacher at the Lahaina schools. So, addressing specifically the age old question of what happened to the children. So, she doesn't claim to know. All she can um, talk about is what she knows. And I'm pretty sure that it's very high risk for her to be talking at all, because the local government officials have told people there, don't interview media sources, don't talk about anything. And she's a school employee. So let's pray for the safety of um, her position and her professional status there, that that doesn't get dinged. So she's like a special ed teacher, and I think she had 24 students in her class prior to the fires, and school was supposed to start the day after the fires. And she thought it was a good thing that school hadn't already started, because that would have been very difficult for people in her shoes to handle that crisis with all the kids. But now coming back to school, she only has 14, I think, of those 24 students, and she doesn't have any information on the other 10 students that were her students. So that's pretty interesting. And they're still sticking with the two um, minors as fatalities. You know, the one that was 7 years old that was in the car with his family, and then the one that was, I think, 14 ish that was found at his home, like maybe sitting on the bed hugging his dog. So these stories are just unbelievable. And I completely agree with the approach that Brush Junkie, Hawaii Real Estate, and Survive or Thrive are taking with begging people to keep their attention on the situation and just asking a lot of questions and trying to shine a light on the truth because it's a heinous situation over there. Um, People are really getting driven out by so many angles. Like one of them is not having clean drinking water. Another one is not having insurance coverage, not being able to continue paying the mortgage or having to pay the mortgage on property that you're not allowed to access. And some of these people are not allowed to access their property, even though it wasn't in the burn zone. Mark, we agree, Smith family, sus to us. I love that quote from Drip Drop. Definitely sus to us. So, so yeah, the I'm so glad that these three channels, at least these three channels, please tell me if you know of any others. The rich taking over Maui, like they hadn't already, right? But yeah, they're you know, there was a brand new low income subdivision that Tyler was talking about having to go through, I think, to get to safety. And it sounds like that brand new low income subdivision didn't burn. I don't know. But I just thought, huh, interesting that they're talking about a newer development that's low income. I would think that that would be going against the grain that the wealthy are wanting there, just like in Truckee, right? MC has talked about the lofts that they built downtown for artists for lower income and creative types to live in. And a lot of people want that culture. They want the artists, they want the creative people, but they don't want the lower income people, you know, like they want to surround themselves with other rich elites. It's a crazy configuration because they want to have people that service them. Mercer Island in Seattle is like this. Mercer Island is in the middle of Lake Washington, and it's pretty big and it's extremely affluent. And there's very little housing for people that aren't affluent. But all of those affluent people want to have housekeepers and grocery store clerks and, you know, teachers, these people, the salt of the earth people that don't make that much money. So they can't afford to live in this area where their services are needed. So they pay people a living wage. That's an idea. That's a great idea. I love it. Yeah, I mean, teachers, I feel like should make as much as professional athletes, personally. Crazy Family, Adelson Laundries, Sammy Smith's mom and dad. Hello, mom, first, always. So yeah, where are we at? We're just at about half an hour. So I'll keep going until I get my 10% warning, and then I'll probably wrap up so that I'm not getting all distracted by the stress of everything crumbling from underneath me. Hope everyone is doing well. I do too. I really do. So, right after I wrapped up yesterday's live, I remembered I had been talking about Julie Fry from the Moscow 4 case. So, Chief Fry's wife, who is the financial director of the city of Moscow. And I actually didn't check, the receipts to make sure I'm getting this straight, but I had it straight a while back and it like came back to me as soon as I wrapped up that she was elected to be the clerk of courts for um, how do you say the name of the county? Latah County. She was elected on the 7th of November, 2022, you guys. Chief Fry's wife, Julie Fry, has a full-time position with the city as the financial director that she was hired for in 2016, 2 years before her husband was then appointed to become the police chief in 2018. Again, I think I have all this straight, but I didn't check my receipts last night. It just kind of came back to me. And then Julie Fry was elected to be the clerk of courts, which is a pretty powerful position. Like they have access to all the information. Where I live, the clerk of courts is the person who handles all of the FOIA requests. So they would be the one redacting things, you guys. And usually anything that has to do with the police department is not going to be sent out until it goes across the desk of the police chief anyway. Um, so Julie Fry was elected 6 days before mass casualty event. And again, I don't have my dictionary handy, but if you look up mass casualty event, because I did a few months ago, and the slaying of 4 students is a mass casualty event. Mass casualty event. So for these first responders to take 4 hours to show up to a mass casualty event is the craziest MF thing I can think of. One of the craziest. Um, but I also yesterday had been talking about Mariah Wilson, the 25-year-old that was shot to death at her friend's residence in Austin, Texas last year. And that trial is currently underway. And True Crime Rocket Science is covering it extremely well. So I'm not going to talk about that case just because I'm a little bit distracted in talking about these others. And I wanted to go back to talking about the FBI, especially Uvalde, really lost their job, like 3, yeah. So the FBI in Idaho, and there's my 10% battery remaining warning. Sorry, you guys. Sorry to be so clueless when it comes to technology. Um, anyway, I'm glad that I put up my videos this morning of me singing Sympathy for the Devil and what was the other one? Opportunity by Joan Armatrading. If you don't know that song, check it out. And I was thinking maybe I'd put a link to her singing the song in the description because she sings it a little bit better than me. And it's the coolest song. Joan Armatrading's the bomb, if you're not familiar. Um, but both of those songs, I think, kind of apply to the forum of what we're talking about today and what we usually talk about. So before I run out of battery juice, talking about the FBI in Idaho, going back into the 1122 King Road residence or 1122 Queen Road residence. I'm pretty sure it's King Road, but like I said, tomato, tomato. That's not so important to me. What's important is why the F did the FBI go back in a year later and say, oh, well, now we can do the 3D imaging that we didn't get to do last year. But wait, you said that you had it all done, and so you were ready to bulldoze the place. Which is it? So I guess we can't trust what they're telling us, huh? But did you guys see the video of the federal authorities carrying personal articles out of the house just a couple weeks ago and setting them on the ground, like on the dirt up against the chain link fence? I was breathless. I was just like, what? the F is this? Like, first of all, why is there anybody's personal property still in there if they already did everything that they needed to do and they were ready to, you know, level the place? And why wouldn't they be like putting it into a secure location? They were like literally placing the items on the ground, leaning up against the chain link fence, meaning like anybody could gain access to that stuff. Unreal. And I just have pretty much zero trust with the level of absurdity that these law enforcement officials have displayed, again, in all three of these cases, the Kylie Rodney case, the Idaho 4 case, and the Maui case. Um, One of the things, going back to the Maui case, that Tyler talks about when Eric West is interviewing him is something I've heard a lot of people say that were there downtown Lahaina the day before. And he was talking about how things were weird the day before and that there were nuclear submarines offshore, and that normally they might have one nuclear submarine offshore, but there were multiple. And it it just was unusual. Things were unusual starting like 24 hours before the wind started. But again, they didn't get that high wind alert that they did get yesterday, the day before. The furniture seemed to be for dump run. And the ruler, ugh, you would think that the families would get people's furniture, their family members' furniture, and then they could decide what to do with it, whether they wanted to hold on to it or destroy it. I believe it is because they got called out on the way they used the DNA to get the arrest warrant. Sorry, I didn't get to read the whole thing before it dissolved. Yeah, that whole DNA arrest warrant thing. Um, Crime Circus has been covering that. Illuminati's been covering that. Um, that's just crazy. That's absolutely insane that they can't show how they got there. Like, that's literally like when you were in ninth grade and you had high level math where you had to show your work. You couldn't just come up with the right answer. You had to demonstrate that you could go step by step and that you did this work, that you weren't cheating using a calculator or copying off the person next to you. Um, for them to not be able to hand that over, or for them to be trying to hide that information, is insane. It's completely out of control. I better go ahead and wrap up because the stream could end any minute. We're just at about 43 minutes. Again, I'll ask you to hit the like button if you still like me despite all of my problems. Yeah, I've said it a bunch, but I'll say it again. It's a miracle that I even have a YouTube channel, so I'm just happy about that. I can't tell you how happy I am about that, and I'm happy that I've learned so much about how to do it, and I will continue to learn more. Thank you, John Courtney. I don't know if some furniture was left behind over the years. That's a good point, but I wouldn't think so, especially because we've all seen the video tours of the property. I would think that it would be emptied out between contracts, but who knows? Um, and let's see what else. I was thinking I would drive over to your house, Chan, and you could help me figure out all the rest of the stuff that I need to know for my YouTube channel. No parent would give one of those kids a Ring camera. Thank you. Have a great day, everyone. Thanks so much for watching. The U-Haul got me. Yeah, John Courtney, me too. In my opinion, they paid a patsy. Yeah, agreed. So Ara says she's going on her Thanksgiving break starting Friday, so we'll be getting more from her. She's doing a lot of just research and focusing on the jurisdiction issue. Shan has her premiere that I didn't get to see, that's something about the federal authorities. But it's unfortunate to see these high levels of law enforcement not serve public safety more better. Anyway, I'm going to sign off, you guys. Have a great rest of your day. I hope that you can get the rest of the relaxation that you deserve. Keep yourself well nourished and hydrated and chill out. Don't worry about, if you have one problem after another, just roll with it. And sending you light, sending you love, and I will see you tomorrow. Yes, please hit the like button, share, and subscribe, and have your notification bell if you like. I'm very humbled, and I think that's great. Work hard, stay humble. Those are words I live by. So thanks again, you guys.